Hi, this is Paul from Twist and Shout, and this is the second episode of Tales of the Wall, where I take some of the great posters and memorabilia and so forth that we have on the wall and tell you the stories behind them. This particular poster here is from the somewhat famous Government Mule Deepest End concert. When Government Mule's original bass player Alan Woody died, they went into a period of rotating bass players where they had a number of different guys sit in and take his place for their tours, and they made 2 or 3 albums during that period. They made Deep End, Deeper End, and then they did this concert in New Orleans in 2003 called The Deepest End, where they had all their bass playing friends come and play with them, and then at the end of that they moved forward with just one bass player in their lineup. So this was like their ultimate bass players tribute show, and it was in New Orleans at the Saenger Theater in May 3rd of 2003, which I believe was shortly after Katrina, and the Saenger, or maybe shortly before, but the Saenger Theater was a real important part of the New Orleans music scene, and I know it was damaged heavily in Katrina and is now back. And it was an important theater to Warren Haynes, the leader of Government Mule, and that's why they wanted to do this there. How I got involved was they chose a local Denver director to direct this video at the Saenger Theater, and they had me prepare questions because they wanted to do a special feature where the various people who played talked. So I prepared a bunch of questions with the idea of going down and interviewing all these amazing bass players we're going to play. Everyone from Roger Glover from Deep Purple, and Jason Newsted from Metallica, and Les Claypool from Primus, and the members of Hot Tuna and Los Lobos, and just countless, Dirty Dozen Brass Band, just all these different bands. The show itself went from 10 to 4 a.m. It was just one of the epic shows of all time. So anyway, we get there in the afternoon, we're doing interviews. I'm actually sitting there interviewing Roger Glover of Deep Purple. It's going great. He's the most incredible guy. We're really hitting it off. And I see some activity over out of the corner of my eye. And then we get interrupted, and I'm asked to come over and talk, and it's like, a national magazine is saying they want to do the interviews, and in exchange they'll give the band a cover story. So you're not going to do the interviews. Wow. I was really bummed. I flew down to New Orleans just to do this, but I understand how these things work. Here was the crazy part. The guy from the national magazine then comes over to me and says, can I have your questions? Obviously the answer was no, you can't have my questions. Anyway, so I'm on my own all day in New Orleans, and I actually ran into a really good friend of mine who owned a record store. It was during Jazz Fest. I didn't mention that part. This whole thing's taking place during Jazz Fest. So I run into another record store owner from Alabama, a friend of mine, and he's like, hey man, you look bummed. And I was like, yeah, I just got cut out of this deal I was supposed to do. He's like, well, let's hang out together and we'll see New Orleans. And I ended up having an incredible day hanging out with this friend. Thanks, Don, wherever you are. And then I went to the show that night, which was just amazing. I was in the front row, and they were incredible. Everybody played with them. It was really one of the epic Government Mule shows of all time. If you're interested, you can buy The Deepest End. It was put out as a excuse me, 2 CD set and 1 DVD set. And the interesting thing about it is the music on the CDs is different than the stuff on the DVD. The show is 4 or 5 hours, and you get the whole thing either on audio or video. But that was a great thing, and you can actually see the back of my bald head in a couple of shots. But anyway, to make up for this event, when I got shut out at the last minute, the band, I think, felt bad. And when I got home, back to the store, like a week later, I got this in the mail, which is the official poster, and they had framed it, and they got almost every single person who played that night to sign it. There's all these great signatures on here. It's a great poster. They did a beautiful job framing it. So, an amazing event in rock and roll history, an incredible event in the history of Government Mule especially, and all these great players who played with them, and also a very interesting side note in my life as a marginalized rock and roll fan. This has been Tales of the Wall. I'll see you next time.